Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The people stayed there before the cross watching Jesus. As for the leaders, they jeered at him. He saved others, they said. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one. The soldiers mocked him too. And when they approached to offer him vinegar, they said, If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself. Above him there was an inscription, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals hanging there abused him. Are you not the Christ, he said. Save yourself and us as well. But the other spoke up and rebuked him. Have you no fear of God at all? You got the same sentence as he did, but in our case we deserved it. We are paying for what we did. But this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus, he said, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Indeed, I promise you, Jesus replied, today you will be with me in paradise. The Gospel of the Lord. Greetings to everyone. A few weeks ago, in the weeks after the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, I was presiding at Mass at Balgowlah. And in the context of what had happened, I referred to the homily of Archbishop Justin Welby, the Anglican Archbishop of Canterbury, on the occasion of the Queen's Requiem. And one very powerful thing said by the Archbishop was that the Queen's service was not rooted in ambition or pride, but in the one that she followed. In the one that she followed. At that time that I was reflecting on those words, it was in the context of the Queen's passing. Today, on this solemnity of Christ the King, I want to dwell on the actual words the Archbishop said of the one that she followed, meaning Christ. Christ is the centre of this solemnity, a solemnity that emerged in terms of liturgical celebration in the form we have it today in the 20th century. In the context of political upheaval in Europe and elsewhere, where the Church was concerned that Christ was increasingly less and less at the centre of public life. And so, as a reminder of that, it was established at the time, Christ the King, that image of the monarch. So it's a celebration of Christ in his own right. But it's also the occasion of reflecting on the model of leadership in the Christian sense. In one sense, leadership's universal. We often think of leadership in terms of prominent, famous leaders, but in fact, leadership is universal. It's something we all exercise in some dimension from our earliest years. So if you think of a family where there are children of different ages, the older ones are exercising leadership fairly early in their lives in terms of their responsibility for the younger ones. Parents in a very obvious situation exercising leadership in that key area of human life, the family, which actually has more immediate impact than broader political situations. Leadership exercised in our place of work. So no matter what category of employment one has, in the particular area of work that person is exercising, leadership is being exercised. So it's something that we all experience, either being led or exercising leadership and responsibility towards others. But we do gravitate to a particularly critical reflection on leadership in major ways, leadership in the church, for example, and leadership in our societies and political world. So it is a great occasion, this solemnity, to reflect on the Christian framework of leadership. Each of the three readings that we have offered to us on this solemnity in this year's C has something really important to say to us. The first reading from the second book of Samuel presents that Jewish sense of the Davidic model of leadership. So the whole story, the evolution of the kingship among the Jewish people, is an ambiguous one, presented initially as not something that God wanted, but that human beings wanted, because they wanted to be like the other societies. But having established the kingship, David becomes the model. He wasn't the first one, Saul preceded him. But in David, the concept of the shepherd king, and shepherd, that sense of care. And we have the word pastoral care, for example, that comes straight from that agricultural image of the shepherd. So David's vocation as the shepherd king was not called to be one of dominance, but one of care and service, giving his life for his people. David was not perfect, and in many ways he failed to live up to the call. Yet the scriptures still hold him as the model king. So when Jesus, of course, in his profoundly Jewish culture, that concept of leadership, kingship, shepherding was deep. And therefore John's Gospel can easily use the image, I am the good shepherd, when referring to Christ. Post the life of Christ, we have the writings of Paul himself, or those that were his disciples, and this magnificent hymn that we have from Colossians today, that universality of that kingship, that universality of that care. Christ is the image of the unseen God, the firstborn of all creation, for in him were created all things in heaven and on earth. But perhaps the most intimate image of kingship in our scriptures today is that offered by the Gospel of Luke, the King on the cross, the suffering King, the one who is in human terms not triumphant, but the one who is imminently accessible, particularly to one of his companions in that horrible moment who says, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And the answer is, today you will be with me in paradise. That the giving of life is the source of that leadership. That giving of one's life for others, and in the universal sense of Christ doing that, is at the heart of that kingship, that service. Just to conclude, because of issues happening in our world at the present time, at the global level, particularly concerning lack of peace, lack of respect for human life, it is important to ask, well, what can the Christian vision offer a model of leadership in our world today? And obviously not exclusively. There are various models of leadership from people of goodwill. But I just point out a few values that are important. Respect for human life. Respect for peace and the quality of human relationships and societies. Respect for all peoples in their diversity, gender, diverse ethnicity, and in terms of the economic conditions under which people live, respect for the quality of life for all. And that a leader obviously has a responsibility of care for their own people, but it's not an isolated care, the concern for all citizens of this world. Hopefully there's something humbly that can be offered from the Christian vision of leadership to the realities which our world encounters today. I wish all of you a great Sunday and all the best for the coming week. Thank you.